Staff ready? All right. Good evening, everyone. Let me call to order the Tuesday, November 14th meeting of Mount Pleasant Town Council. It's good to see everybody here and families here for the swearing in, and we've got some athletes to recognize in just a little bit. Item number one on our published agenda is a prayer by Chief Mixon, and then the pledge by Mayor Pro Tem Gary Santos. If you will please rise. I invite you to pray with me. Father God, we come before you in this season of thankfulness. As we gather with family and friends next week, Lord, I pray that you help us to remember the many blessings that you've poured out on this community and each of us individually. Lord, I also thank you for the freedoms that we have in this community, the freedom to vote, the freedom to participate in local government, the freedom to work together to make this town a shining city on a hill whose light will not be extinguished. Father God, I also thank you for our veterans that we celebrated last weekend. Lord, we know that they often stand in the gap between us and evil, and we thank you for those men and women who have served this community and continue to give us our freedom. Lord, and lastly, I ask for your blessing and protection upon each and every person in this room. As we go forth in this community to do your work and to be your hands and feet, Lord, I ask that you help us to serve this community and go out with love for each of our citizens and visitors. Father God, we ask all these things in your precious and holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief Mixon. Thank you, Mr. Santos. Item 3 is approval of the agenda to approve. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Item 4 is public hearings, awards, and presentations. We will be administering the oath of office to the 3 incumbents and to Mr. Daniel Brownstein. And then after that, we're going to take about a 5-minute, which always ends up being 10 minutes, break so that families can take pictures and those that were here for that can dismiss themselves. So would y'all please join me, and y'all face the crowd, and I will face y'all from the lectern. Yes, you may join your loved one, if they want you to. All right, if you place your hand on the Bible, if so desired, or raise your other hand, please, and repeat after me. And we know this is a little awkward, but we've worked on it. I do solemnly swear that I am duly qualified. I'm sorry, you didn't win. According to the Constitution of this state, to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been elected, and that I will, to the best of my ability, discharge the duties thereof, and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of this state and of the United States. As a council member of the town of Mount Pleasant, I will equally, fairly, and impartially, to the best of my ability and skill, exercise the trust reposed in me, and I will use my best endeavors to preserve the peace and carry into effect, according to law, the purposes for which I have been elected. So help me God. Congratulations.
All right, those who, let's get a group picture for them and then for individual families. And then we'll take a 5-minute recess. All right. Ricky, you there? Everybody ready? Let's go see. 5, 3, 2. Perfect. All right, individual families? 3, 2.
You want to?
Perfect. All right.
Nah, that's fine.
Go right here.
It's a group shot.
Big smile. Big cheese. There you go. That's good. Perfect.
Yeah. I think we're gonna do a group council shot too.
Oh, what was
Yeah, once they get all individual shots.
this way? Perfect. Smile. Perfect. Thanks. Sure. Let's do it. Yeah. Council members, let's do a picture with everybody. Can I get some more people to come on this side for me? Sweet, thanks. That should go. Yeah. This should be good. All right. Smile. 3, 2. Cool. Thanks. 5-minute recess. Thank y'all.
Election afternoon. I hope so. You're seeing a lot, right?
This is what the other side looks like.
Yeah, but that's all.
It's a nice command center.
Yeah. Have you sat up here before? I didn't know. So, people walking around. Think we're about ready? All right, let's come back to order, please. Item number 4 is public hearings, awards, and presentations. B, election of mayor pro tem. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Miss Jan Whitley, Mayor Pro Tem.
Second. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Do we have any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mayor and council members, as you recall, a couple of years ago, we talked about the potential to change Mayor Pro Tem each year to give all of the council members an opportunity, if they choose, to be Mayor Pro Tem. And I would like to make that in the form of a motion, and if necessary, our attorney, if he needs to write up a ordinance on that, I'm okay with that. But I think from the standpoint of just giving every council member a chance to be Mayor Pro Tem would be a good idea. So I'm making that in the form of motion.
Okay, hold on. I'm getting a look from our parliamentarian, so come in.
Thank you, Mayor. Sir, that would need to be done through the process. We would need to amend our ordinance.
Right.
So we can, of course, we can bring it through committee next go round if that is the committee's wish and council's wish, and or it could be brought to council for first reading next time around.
Okay, so the vote for tonight by ordinance is a 2-year term.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. We're in discussion. Any further discussion? All in favor of Ms. Whitley as the new Mayor Pro Tem, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations. I want to thank Councilman Santos for his many years. I think he's been Mayor Pro Tem for 4 of the last 6 years at least.
35 years.
45 years. Thank you. And thank you for that motion. We appreciate you spreading the love a little bit. So thank you very much. That was wonderful. Item C, public hearing to receive comments on a proposed amendment to development agreement between Carolina Park and the town of Mount Pleasant. If you will take us away with that, Ms. Reed.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Council, Mayor and Council. So this is a public hearing to receive comments on a proposed amendment to the Carolina Park Development Agreement between Carolina Park Development, LLC and the town of Mount Pleasant. Proposes to amend Exhibit C to the development agreement, which is entitled the PD District Development Standards. The goal is to create a new mixed-use district on the 38-acre tract of land that the town owns. This would include the permitted uses, the development standards, and the tract would include 30 attainable housing units, increasing the overall dwelling units in Carolina Park from 2030 to 2060. Further amendments for the development agreement include the transfer of ownership of Ben Marino Way to the town, extend the development agreement for an additional 2 years, and then release use restriction to permit cell tower use on the town active park. And I'm happy to answer questions you may have.
All right, this is a public hearing, so your comments are different from your public comments for our regular monthly agenda. If there's anyone here to address this, please come forward, give your name and address, 2.5 minutes. No comments? All right, I am required to gavel the public hearing closed. I'm not gaveling the meeting closed. We've had fun, but we got more we have to do. This public hearing is closed. Item D is recognition of Special Olympics North American Golf Championship athletes. Please come forward.
selected to represent the state of South Carolina at the Special Olympics North American Golf Championship, where there were 19 delegations, including teams from Canada. So it's a big tournament. It's a really big deal. And our players, they practiced through the heat of the summer. They went to state games, and a week later jumped on a plane and played 3 days of golf. We have golfers here who played 18 holes for 3 days. We had golfers who played 9 holes for 3 days, and then we had golfers who did the skills of golf for 3 days. We came home with 2 gold medals, 5 silver, 2 bronze, and 4 participation. And just a quick note, so we do 2 seasons of golf because this is a great life skill. They do have the opportunity to be selected for national as well as international competitions. We have sent a golfer to China before, so it's bigger than the town of Mount Pleasant, but we do provide a lot of opportunities so that they can have these lifelong opportunities too. Not only do we do golf, we do swimming, we do basketball, we do hip-hop. We're dabbling in some pickleball and many other sports and activities throughout the year. And we can't do this without our volunteers standing in front of you, as well as our parents and teammates who are here to support us. So again, I just want to take the chance to recognize the ones who went all the way to New Jersey to represent our town and our state. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Everybody turn around for a picture facing that way. Picture facing this way. Can you guys try to back up as far as you can for me? Thank you, thank you. Perfect. All right, right here, big smile. 3, 2. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Good job. And thank you, Shelley, for that nice presentation. This brings us to item E, which is Longevity Awards. Mr. Morrison. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Special welcome to Councilman Brownstein. Looking forward to working with you and our staff as also on anything of particular interest, in particular in transportation. So at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Mike Talby and his supervisor, William Horn, to come up here with me, and we can recognize Mike for 25 years of employment with the town of Mount Pleasant. And I use that word employment instead of work because I think Mike truly subscribes to the quote, find a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. And that's my experience with Mike. He's a model employee, truly a model employee. He's one of the most thoughtful, respectful, and beautiful persons that I know, not just employees, but persons. He's just that kind of man. We've been really fortunate and blessed to have Mike with us for 25 years now, and I'm just extremely grateful that he spent that time with us. I'm going to ask William to say a few words, and I think since William asked to do this, that speaks volumes of Mike's character and his value here at the town of Mount Pleasant.
Hello, good evening. I'm William Horn. I'm a deputy EDS director and also the building official for the town. And love working with Mike. So, what to say about Mike? At first, I thought, wow, this is going to be kind of tough because I've only been here like 2.5 years, so that's like 10% of the time with him. So, that was really tough. So then I started thinking, well, what about some numbers, right? So if we take the average inspections that we do a day times the amount of days we work, we're in the neighborhood of around 50 to 55,000 inspections that this gentleman has done for us in the town. He mentioned the other day to of the commercial properties in the town, he's touched at one point or another. We do a lot of different things in our department. Certification, keeping up with a lot of that is one of the main priorities that we have. For the state, we would have gone through around 600 hours of continuing education. For our national accreditation, that's going to push it another 1,500 hours up. And one thing I can't really blame him on, but the town population when he started around 1998 was around 42,000. Wow. And so now we're at around 95,000 or so. All right, so that kind of gives you a few numbers for us. So, however, in this short time, I've been honored to build a great relationship with him and feel we work well together. From my short experience with him, I see that Mike has the drive to help guide and make the town better. I'm sure I can infer that throughout his time over the similar 2.5 years that I've had, he's been doing this whole time. There are plenty of times that we have to be firm and he has to stick to that exact letter of the code. But he's always willing to help when he can, be that explaining and training the new employees or the contractors, or helping a new homeowner understand the but why question. Mike exudes dedication to our team and to the town. I cannot imagine the department without him. So I, and I'm sure many known and unknown, said and unsaid, greatly appreciate the 25 and hopefully a few more. So, of course, I greatly appreciate it. And we'd like to present you with this as well.
Thank you so much.
Checks in the mail.
Thank you, members. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We appreciate your service, Mike. Is that it for longevity awards? I believe it is. Yes. Okay. Item 5, approval of the minutes from October 10th and the August financial statement. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Abstain. Yeah, thank you. The minutes are approved with one abstention. Item 6 is public comment. If you'd like to make a public comment, please come forward, name and address, 2.5 minutes, please. We have the timer that will go off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First speaker, David Kalishman.
Ladies and gentlemen of council, my name is David Kalishman. I'm one of the many residents here tonight from Annie Laurel Lane. And we are here today, and actually if everyone can wave and show the support that we got here. You know, we brought a whole contingent, many more here who couldn't be here. But we are here today to discuss our concerns with the fleet maintenance facility and the recycling center being built adjacent to our neighborhood. We've always valued reasonable and responsible government initiatives and understand the necessity for these sites. However, we are pretty concerned with the current plans to not be sufficient to abate the sounds and pollution coming from these facilities. Therefore, we are making 2 reasonable requests from you to help make sure that our quality of life is protected and maintained in our lovely neighborhood of Annie Laurel Lane. Our first request is the extension of the dense buffer that has been proposed. Currently, there is a gap of a dense buffer that's on one side of the facility, it's on the other, but there's been a gap left due to some unfortunate zoning that we would ask for your request to rectify. That's a simple and reasonable request to close that gap with a full dense buffer of trees. Our second request is a commitment from you to do a proper sound assessment once the facility is complete and operational. Once everything's up and running and we can take a step back and do a proper assessment. That would be a request for your commitment to us. It should be done around February or March, so we can do that then. We have sent an email to all of you. Thank you to those who responded positively and understanding of our reasonable requests. We greatly appreciate that. And as a follow-up to this meeting, I'm going to send an email to all of you to invite you to come out to our neighborhood and see it firsthand. I think you'll completely agree with our reasonable requests, and there's nothing better than seeing it in real time. So thank you so much. You're going to hear from two fellow residents on those two requests, kind of a deep dive on each of them with some very cool solutions that we also want to present. We want to work with you to solve it ourselves too. So thank you very much.
Next speaker is Carrie Stafford.
Hello. Tonight I'm standing before you to discuss a matter for us that is of great importance, and it's the need to extend the dense vegetation buffer around the new fleet maintenance and recycling facilities. As many of you know, our homes and public areas are situated extremely, if not alarmingly, close to the facility and is exposing us to constant visual and auditory disruptions. The well-being of our residents, which include young children, active military personnel, as well as veterans, some of whom are particularly sensitive to noise and activity, is at stake. I can say that personally, coming from my husband is currently active in the Army. We did receive the current plan, and to be frank, the buffer, it's grossly insufficient. It's akin to having a safety net with a tear. It's leaving us completely vulnerable to the industrial sounds and sites that are going to be there once this facility is operational. The current plan calls for a dense buffer of only about 75% of the site, a critical 25% of that, which is actually directly in front of the maintenance facility, has been missed. So as far as we can tell from the plans, there will be no additional buffer, whether that's vegetation or anything placed there. My hope is that that was just a simple oversight that we can work together to correct. We do ask that we work with you and with the city managers to fortify the dense buffer. And in essence, we're just asking for the simple return of as much of the vegetation back to its original pre-construction density. Obviously, knowing it can't all be put back, but just adding a little more in that specific area. An extension will not merely request a necessity to preserve our quality of life and act as a visual and acoustic safeguard. Again, the existing buffer along the last 25%, it has nothing to shield our residents. Personally, right now, I'm unable to enjoy the use of the front outdoor spaces due to noise and just looking at the big, ugly building, to be honest. We will be attaching the speeches that we have today along with the graphic representation of our proposed solution, and we believe the solution is both fiscally and functionally suitable for both parties. And it illustrates how an enhanced buffer can significantly mitigate the disturbances and demonstrates our commitment to helping find a workable solution. We're not against progress. We just want everything to be responsible and considerate so that our neighborhood can remain tranquil and undisturbed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I ask everybody, please not respond, because if we allow applause, we have to allow boos, and we don't want anybody getting booed at town council. Thank you. Although that was a nice golf clap, but I just have to be fair for everybody. Thank you. Next, please.
Is it Pat Gillespie? Yes, sir. Pass that. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pat Gillespie. I live at 2182 Annie Laura Lane, and I've been there for 7 years, and we've been through a lot with the transfer station over the years, and we've been here to talk to you before. Right now, we see a conclusion of the construction coming up shortly for the new maintenance building, the offices, and the transfer station building. We still have problems, though, that we're very concerned about. Number one would be noise. Number two would be the dust in the air constant. In fact, Mayor Haney, he has been there to experience the dust that we have to live with on a regular basis. But as far as noise goes, I've given you a pass out, and I hope you will take the time to read it. This is from the Department of Environmental Protection from Montgomery County of Maryland. And what they have done for a project for light rail line called the Purple Line is they have stopped the use of tonal backup alarms, which normally most manufacturers put them in. They're about 105 decibels. They're loud, and OSHA requires they must be able to be heard within 250 feet or 200 feet of the backup machinery. They have come up with a new way to take care of this, and it's called white noise. And the white noise alarms are broadband technology, and instead of making the tonal noises, they direct it to where there's an object in the backup path, and it's shh, shh, and it's quiet and dissipates quickly. But the person who hears it, they know it's there, and it gets their attention. And after being in the construction industry for most of my life, I've been listening to this forever. And guess what? Most guys on the job, they ignore it because you don't know where it's coming from. This new technology is really fantastic, and I think we should give it a good opportunity and a good test. So we're asking that we do an assessment of noise after the building's post-building, and I think that we should include the white noise factor in there and see how that works in that situation. And I think it will be helpful, and we're going to find it to be a better meeting of the minds between residents and the city. I think it could be a good deal for all. Also, we're hoping that we can do something about the dust and the dust collection that is in the work site, and hopefully that can be addressed also at the same time. So I thank you for your time this evening, and have very good luck to all of you. Marie-Louise Moreto.
Good evening. I'm Marie-Louise Moreto. I live at 1133 Liberty Court, and I'm here to represent the Mount Pleasant Community Arts Center Committee, known as the MPCAC. Since 2016, we have been advocating for a community arts center. So tonight, I would really like to applaud Mayor Haney and the council members and the CAP Commission for seriously considering the need for an arts center in Mount Pleasant. The societal, health, and economic benefits of the arts are well documented. Arts and Economic Prosperity 5, a 2019 report by Americans for the Art, documents the ways in which a strong arts infrastructure will stimulate economic development. The arts also enhance wellness, strengthen community ties. This reduces reliance on a community's health and safety resources. We look forward to exploring the ways in which the arts can enhance our town and stimulate Mount Pleasant's economy. We want to help in any way we can. We believe in collaboration and have formed working relationships with other arts organizations. And working together, for all of us to work together, the town, the residents, the arts community, and the business community, we can make the Mount Pleasant Arts Center a reality. Thank you.
Myra Jones.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I hope you've had the opportunity to review my letter that we pass a hate crimes ordinance. South Carolina and Wyoming are the only two states to not have a hate crimes ordinance. Our state legislature has failed miserably in passing such a bill, and in response, municipalities of Greenville, Columbia, Charleston, and Bluffton all passed their own. Racial, religious, and other biases and discrimination are at their highest since records been kept. Most hate crime incidents occur in or around homes. To protect our citizens, our families, and our property, I ask that you do the same as the other municipalities and pass a hate crimes ordinance. And while I have your ear, I ask that you support opportunities to develop more attainable housing, not only at the Faison website, but elsewhere in our town. This is in sync with Section 3.3 of the town's comprehensive plan and is a dire and desperate need. With proper restrictions in place, we can create not investment properties, but attainable homes for our elderly, first responders, teachers, and workforce. And last, it's time that our town invest in a dedicated arts facility within which our residents may participate in theatrical events, arts lessons, exhibitions, cultural events, and performances. This will not be a burden on our town, as it will be supported by donations from private individuals, sponsorships from businesses and industry, and revenue generated from space rental and admission tickets. I ask that you support these issues. Thank you for all you do for our town.
Michael Jerome Singleton.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Jerome Singleton. I grew up in Mount Pleasant. I went to Wanda High School. I graduated in 1978. And from there, I went to college. My mother and her husband, they lived at 2985 Joseph Glover Road in the Phillips community. And recently, I submitted a request to get it rezoned so that I can develop the land for my nieces and nephew and brothers and sisters. And I ask that you review it and please let me take care of my family. By the way, I did 30 years in the military. I'm a combat vet from Iraq and Afghanistan. I was the head doctor on an aircraft carrier. And all this happened because I grew up here. So please help me to help my family, and thank you very much.
Keely Enright.
Hi, everybody. I'm Keely Enright, and I live at 1245 Jersey Court. In 2001, a 200-seat cabaret theater space opened on Coleman Boulevard right down the street from here. It was an arts venue created to provide music, comedy, and theater for the residents of Mount Pleasant and its visitors. It was known as Village Playhouse. From the very first day of operation, Village Playhouse was a success. When it opened in 2001, we had 45,000 residents in our town. Village Playhouse ran 12 months a year until the late summer of 2012. The venue had over 500 season ticket holders, brought in 10,000 patrons annually, and produced more than 180 nights of performances each season. Not just plays, but a multitude of arts organizations, including children's musicals, ballet companies, stand-up comedy, choir performances, variety shows, magic, and 50 performances in a 2-week window for Charleston's Piccolo Spirito Festival for more than 7 years straight. The venue was not in Charleston proper. It was the only venue not in Charleston proper, and it was a yearly and important participant of that festival. The Playhouse brought people to restaurants and coffee houses and late-night eateries. It put butts in seats and heads in beds for 12 years. It was an important destination location in an otherwise cultural wasteland. When the company outgrew the space, everybody hoped to continue in Mount Pleasant as it was the Village Playhouse of Mount Pleasant. But that was not to be, and with no space found east of the Cooper, the company moved downtown. When the Playhouse doors closed, it financially impacted the surrounding Mount Pleasant businesses and left a vacuum that was never filled. And the winners became the downtown restaurants and bars and hotels that surrounded the new Playhouse on Mill Street. Mount Pleasant now has 100,000 residents. 11 years is way too long to be a cultural wasteland. People here have the desire and the means to cultivate and support a community arts venue that can offer a myriad of programming options. With experience and qualified leadership, an arts center will thrive. I urge you to adopt the CAP recommendations, and let's finally begin again to put Mount Pleasant on the map as a cultural and economic driver that we can be proud of. Thanks.
Mary Smith.
Good evening, everyone. I live in a development called Porsche Preserve. Porsche Preserve is off of Poacher's Bluff Road. There is two ways to get through this development. If you come in Bella Oaks abuts right onto Poacher's Bluff Road. You can make a right-hand turn out of there, and right now you can make a left-hand turn out of there. The primary street in this development is called Sharpstown Court, which is where I live. If you ride, I live in the cul-de-sac. If you ride all the way down the end of Sharpstown Court, the only way you can exit from Sharpstown Court onto Billy Swales is you must make a right. So we're going to be faced with now, when they do this adjustment at the market at Oakland, that it's going to be so difficult to get out of Bella Oaks onto Poacher's Bluff Road. Right now it's a two-lane road. Already, when you get there, you wait a while, but you can get across the road, and then you can make a quick right into the shops at Oakland. So the difficulty for us is going to be the people who live there can't fathom how we're going to make a left-hand turn onto Poacher's Bluff Road and how we're going to get up to 17. We realize there's been a lot done on this previously, but this is a very small development, so we don't know if people have really thought that much about the development that's there. There's not that many housing developments on this section of Poacher's Bluff Road, but we are there. It's about 50 houses. It's fairly new. It's about 6 or 8 years old. I'd just like to consider that. We don't know if we're going to need a traffic light there, but we just don't know how we're going to get out of that street to make a left. Thank you very much.
Scott Schmitz. Scott Schmitz, 1193 Sharpstown Court. I'm asking council to reject the Market at Oakland conceptual plan, specifically due to the request to install an unsignalized intersection at Porsche's Bluff and Bella Oaks Drive. Bella Oaks Drive is the primary exit from my community, which is Porsche's Preserve, as you've heard. The applicant's traffic study shows that this intersection will make it much more difficult to exit our community. That study doesn't account for a single vehicle that will be sent down that corridor when Billy Swales 4B and the Highway 41 expansion projects are completed. So it's going to be much worse than they're projecting. The Market at Oakland already has an access point on Porsche's Bluff at South Morgan's Point Road. They should be required to upgrade that intersection to its maximum capacity before requesting a curb cut, let alone a new intersection that has a negative impact on the neighboring community. Please send this back for redesign. That's all I have, sir.
Is there only one speaker who didn't get to sign it? Please come forward. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name is Brian Jones. I represent the South Carolina Shrimpers Association, and I'm here to speak in favor of your resolution later on in the agenda here for adopting a resolution encouraging Governor Henry McMaster to declare an economic disaster due to dumping of imported shrimp into the United States markets. So as shrimpers, we've seen this influx of imported shrimp going back most recently, I'd say the past 4 or 5 years, where it's grown 10-fold, 20-fold, to where they're expanding or outpacing the amount of shrimp we consume. There's right now, as of 2022, we have 2.1 billion pounds of shrimp imported in the United States and 1.7 billion pounds consumed. That's not the word chant, but sorry, I went to close state.
Everyone, please put your devices on silent.
So this town what they would do is they'd end up following in the footsteps. I hate to say that because it's Mount Pleasant, but it would be the second town in South Carolina to adopt such a measure, following McClellanville. But it wouldn't be the only town in the United States. So there have been towns from Texas, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, North Carolina, and here in South Carolina as well. They've adopted such disaster declaration request or resolutions. What it would end up doing is it's more than merely a symbolic gesture. It would send a message to the governors of each state, and hopefully they would request that the United States Secretary of Commerce to declare an economic disaster. That would provide immediate economic assistance to shrimpers now. There are other things that we're taking into account and addressing from the imported crisis, but that wouldn't get directly to the shrimpers themselves. This would provide immediate direct relief, and we ask for and urge your support, and we appreciate everything Mount Pleasant has done to support the shrimping industry. As I'm watching the clock, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our president of the Shrimpers Association, Mr. Rocky Magwood, who's here with us. He's been shrimping since 4 a.m. this morning, so I won't make him speak. But if you do have questions for us later on, we'd be more than happy to address any of those. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Is that it? Okay. All right, that is the end of item number 6, public comment. This brings us to item 7, which is consent agenda items. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion? I just want to comment before we vote. I wasn't here last month. I was out, and I have real heartburn with one of these items, so I will be a no vote, but there's no reason to get into that. It's going to pass. All right. Any other comment? All in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda items, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion carries.
Approval of consent agenda items A and B.
Just for the record, that is a no vote to item A on the consent agenda.
Yeah, if I can signify.
But B is a yes, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't know. I thought I had to do it on the whole thing. All right. This moves us to item 8, which is planning new business. Now, Mrs. Reed.
Thank you. So item 1 and 2 are separate on your agenda, and they'll require separate votes, but I'm going to present them together. So it is a proposal to amend the development agreement and the PD for Carolina Park. You all know the property, so I'm just going to go through real quick. And this is really to amend the PD to allow this tract of land to change from what it's currently now, which is CPI, Carolina Park Industrial / Economic, to a new designation, and we're calling it the Top Tract, original. It's a 38-acre tract of land. It will have it'll be a mixed-use district. It'll apply to all 38 acres. The PD amendment also is an increase in the overall dwelling units. Carolina Park is maxed out at 2,030. This will allow 2,060, and it will allow specifically for 30 attainable housing units on this tract only. Proposed uses in the amendment to the PD would be under 11 acres. That is developable. Those are going to be in accordance with the town's economic strategic plan, the town's economic development zoning district. It'll allow the 30 attainable housing units, civic uses, and then natural and open spaces and pedestrian trails. And then the amendments to the development agreement are to extend it for 2 years, transfer of ownership to Ben Marina Way, and then the use of the permit cell tower. And so real quick, the tract, you can see the new designation there in pink. This is what the land use plan will look like. And this was important really to, when we're all gone and a new planner is looking at something and this comes across their desk, they're able to pull the Carolina Park land use plan. They're able to see this tract. They need to see the note at the top, which references the text that I just read through. And so only those uses that are allowed in the text would be what would be permitted in that area. Of course, this is the concept plan that you all chose. And then the ED...
May I clarify something before we get to the message? Ms. Paglia, we discussed this yesterday. We are not approving a development plan or a site plan. We are only voting on zoning, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So the ED strat plan lays out these clusters. So what we did when we referenced the zoning in our code update, you'll see that we've included those job codes under the ED district. So that will all correspond. The top ED uses on that tract will correspond with our principal use table as it gets updated. We've also got a few other development standards, and they're pretty basic. The ED, any ED uses on this top tract will be in accordance with our ED zoning district development standards. And then we've made the attainable housing in accordance with the Carolina Parks multifamily district that already exists. Maximum height for all uses, all buildings within the tract would be 50 feet, and that's what it is now for CPI. So there's no change in height. Actually, I think for multifamily, you're allowed to go go up to 60 or 65. This would cap it at 50 for all structures. And then there's the retail spaces must be ancillary to any ED use and in no case shall be less than 5,000 square feet. We address the buffers, the parking, and that's all really in accordance with our code or the Carolina Park Code that already exists. The Planning Commission and the committee all did recommend approval. The commission's primary concern was that remaining 27 acres. They wanted to make sure it stayed as it is and didn't get developed. And so I would just point out in the development agreement amendment, it does state that that tract of land would be used specifically for passive park, those 27 acres. And of course, if there was any change to that in the future, that would have to come in the form of an amendment like this to this body. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and that's all.
Motion.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah. This is slightly on topic, but slightly off topic. Sorry. So, with the mentioning of Ben Marino Way being transferred over to the town, I just want to say that road is so dark, and quite frankly, kind of dangerous when you're getting back to the soccer field at night. So I just want to put that bug in our ear that I really think we should take a look at that.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion to approve. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Item number 1, we have to vote on these separately. Item number 1 is approved.
The first reading ordinance number 23033.
Do we have a motion for item number 2? So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve item 2, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
First reading ordinance number 23034.
All right, this moves us down to item number 3. This is the impact assessment for the market at Oakland.
Yes, sir. So this is strictly an impact assessment and conceptual plan. This is all part of a plan development, as you can see back on my last map. So all of the uses, everything that's
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a motion
Yes, sir.
that we defer this back to the planning committee next month.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to defer to the planning committee next month. We have a second. We're in discussion. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes, sir. As a member of the planning committee, we did look at it before, but there's some issues that have come up tonight, and I think it probably needs a second look. When developments are approved, they normally have access as part of the approval process for the entire development, not just pieces of the development. And so to bring another point of access out of a development that already has other options, I think it's worth looking at. I don't know what the final answer will be, but it's worth looking at again.
Okay. Motion is to defer. Is there any other discussion? To defer it back to the planning committee. Yes, ma'am.
I'm comfortable with the deferral. I think one of the questions that we had at committee that I believe was answered was that and please correct me if I'm incorrect, but it was that the traffic study, given the current roads, was that it wasn't going to be a significant enough impact to justify a traffic light, but that once those new roads come online, that an additional study would be done, and at that point in time, a light might be necessary. Is that correct?
That's correct. So I think I can mark on here. You can't see it. There you go. So the intersection there. So they're proposing a curb cut here, but then they would also come in through South Morgan's Point. So the impact assessment is calling for a right in and a left turn there. You're talking about this intersection here. So as Mr. Aton mentioned at the committee meeting, right now it is not warranted to put a light there. He did say that once Billy Swills Boulevard comes on, and that they would look at that. He also made mention that if this ingress egress went away and they only had access here, and so all of their traffic came out here, it still would not warrant a light at this time at that intersection. But they would look at it, like you said, once those other roads come online. And I know Brad's here. He can answer anything that I may not have answered or said incorrectly.
Okay. Any other comments before we vote? Anyone else wish to speak? All right, all in favor of the motion to defer this back to the planning committee at its next meeting, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, the deferral carries. So this brings us to item 4, which is first reading of an ordinance to extend
Second.
allocation permit system. We have a motion and we have a second. And Ms. Paglini, if I understand correctly, so far in the years that it has been implemented, it has not been exceeded to this point, right? To where anyone can say they were damaged by it. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. So we had this discussion. This was, I can't remember who was on council when we first did this. We didn't just pick a number that we liked. We looked at all of our infrastructure. We had a study that was done, and we decided what growth rate our infrastructure, our traffic, everything could handle, and that's how we came upon that number. And it has not been exceeded, but it's like a firewall, so that we don't have another period of rampant growth, and everything is pushed to the max, and then we have to figure out what to do from there. So I think the committee voted for to nothing to redo it. Yes, ma'am, you have the floor.
So the thing that was not exceeded was single-family dwelling units. The accessory dwelling units fully were permitted, and I believe there's a wait list for that. Is that correct?
Right.
There's, it's completely filled up, and with the anticipation that this may get extended, we have folks on a wait list, and I think there's 6 slots left for for July 24. So those have been used up, and then 490 of the 500 multifamily have been gone since 2021. So we never exceeded the single family, though. You're correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yes,
Yes,
as
sir.
as somebody who's concerned about affordability issues in our town, I'm curious about why the number of 100 ADUs was selected for a 5-year period. It seems to me that there's a lot of demand for multi-generational housing, and with some of our affordability issues, that this may be a way for people to stay in their homes without being priced out of the market, or allowing for space for in-laws to come live with them, or adult children. So I guess just a general comment, 100 accessory dwelling units over a 5-year period seems a bit low to me. And I'm wondering if you could provide some context about how we arrived at that number.
If my memory serves me correctly, it's similar to the conversation with short-term rentals, where with accessory dwelling units, most neighborhoods that were developed post probably 1970 or 75 or so have covenants and restrictions and HOAs that do not allow them to build ADUs. And so it seems like a small number, but when you actually see where all of these permits are coming from, the vast majority of them are coming from the Old Village, the Groves, neighborhoods that have been there for a long, long time and don't. So they're just too highly concentrated in one small area. I think it's why the number seems lower.
I can speak a little further to that, not to conflate STRs with ADUs, but ADUs, they're not allowed in like Brickyard, Bell Hall, Dunes West Park West, Ivy Hall. Most of them are, we've got a lot in Carolina Park, Ion, Pepper Track, but a lot of them are in Old Mount Pleasant, not necessarily Old Village, but Old Mount Pleasant. There's a huge concentration of them. But to date, since the ADU ordinance passed in 2010, we have CO 270. So that's what's sitting out there at this point in time that has received a certificate of occupancy. So
270 basically in a decade and a half. Okay.
13 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So how long is the wait list? How large is the wait list right now, I guess? Or did you say they're using the rest up?
So they issue 10 every 6 months. Right now, there's none available up until July. And I think there's 4 have been taken last I checked with our Building and Inspections Division. I think there's 6 slots left for then. But yeah, They've all been taken for this 5-year period.
Now a wait list of 50 on there yet.
From a legal standpoint, that we don't consider that a substantial delay worthy of any claims. It's working as expected and as predicted. Any other discussion? All right, the motion is to approve. This is first reading. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. First reading, ordinance number 23035.
And this last item before you.
Second. This is the waiver of the one-year waiting period.
Yes,
Is
sir.
this one Mr. Singleton spoke of?
Yes, sir.
We have a motion to approve the waiver. We have a second. We're in discussion. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
All right, item B, old business. There are no old business items. Thank you, Ms. Reed. This moves us to section 9, committee action items, Health, Recreation, and Events Committee.
Move to approve CAPS plan.
Second. All right, we have a motion to approve the CAP plan and a second. We would be in discussion. So as the committee chair, what y'all's deliberations at the committee entailed.
Well, originally, we recommended to send it to council for discussion because we did come up with some questions. Their recommendation was to put out the RFP and to allow the person that won the RFP to choose the location. And I think, coming from committee, I think we still would like to work on having council choose the location and then put out the RFP. So we were interested in hearing from council and then sending it back to committee before we made a decision, rather than just going with their recommendation.
Yes, sir. Ms. Whitley.
So I think that one of the things, part of what I would like to include in my motion, or just as part of the discussion, is that drafting that RFP, putting out that RFP, and gathering applicants for that RFP, and selecting someone for that RFP, to me is going to be a 6-month plus process. And so and we have had this plan sitting before us and this concept of an arts facility sitting before us for months and months and months. And it is owned by no one. It is held by no one. It's no one's job at the town to find that facility. There are 9 of us here, but none of us here have found that facility. And we look, but like, we don't have like a broker. We don't have like a plan in place. So my thought is that we implement CAP's plan, which is going to be a 6 to 8 month process probably in order to get the RFP drafted and out there. And in the interim, perhaps Matt Brady, who's our economic development person, be truly through direction and action of council directed to actively seek out options. And if there were one to come into play before the RFP goes out, we jump on it. We get it. And then whoever comes in on the RFP would have that role and hold the responsibility of getting it upfitted to be used for the community and have that going. My concern with waiting until council finds a place is that we'll never find a place because none of us, we all have other jobs, we all have other responsibilities, and none of us is fully dedicated to seeking out a location. And also, none of us has necessarily the expertise and knowledge to know exactly what kind of facility would be needed. And this is I want to remind sort of the public that this is an interim space that we're looking at as being sort of like a 5-year, 7-year plan to sort of be a proof point that demonstrates the need for a dedicated arts facility in the community. And I know in the referendum, there's 10,000 square feet dedicated at Rifle Range Park to the arts. And so this could be very informative of that particular plan. So I think, we already have kind of pushed this down to Culture, Arts, and Pride. They worked very hard on a plan, brought it back with the council, and I think we're at a point where we need to take action and not delay this further.
If I may, I was just looking for a point of clarity. I thought, and others thought, by the motion to approve the CAP plan, it meant we had to hire the person or group first before we could, but what I heard you say is if we find the right place, we can go ahead and lease it. So is that kind of where your committee was coming from?
It was. So as long as we clarified, I agree, this is going to be time consuming, but I didn't want to wait to get the RFP to find the place. So I'd rather.
I thought I heard y'all both
Working
in the
like a
same
chicken
argument.
and egg situation,
Yeah,
right?
so as long as your motion includes that we can still search for the location ourselves,
Of course.
then it'll keep things moving.
And I can formally amend my motion to include that.
Could you just restate that?
Yes, so I move to approve the implementation of CAP's recommendation for a town community arts center, but in the interim time, as we work towards getting that RFP out, that council can continue to, that staff be tasked with actively seeking out a location.
Mr. DeMora, does that give you what you need to dedicate staff effort to that?
Yes, sir.
Because we know there's some places out there, we had a near miss on one in the Long Point area that wasn't our fault, but it makes sure, both of y'all's points, that we need to be able to move quickly and not wait 6 or 7 months if we have to. So that's your amended motion and amended second, okay? Any further discussion?
Yes, I've got one thing. What I do like about Mr. Brady being on it, and I think there's something that was mentioned at public comment with Keeley was, and I don't want to drown this in committees, but there's a serious economic development portion of this that, if placed in the right part of town, will help the town and restaurants and things thrive as well. So I think it's great that Mr. Brady would be on it because of that economic development portion of things. I think it's very important that we don't ignore that portion of it as well.
I checked with our attorney yesterday. What we voted to approve budget-wise when we were looking at a building on 17 North is still valid, so that money is already approved. So we don't have to go back and reapprove that money for a community arts center. So I think we're cocked and loaded. We just need to identify. All right, yes, sir, Ms. Rambo.
I do have a procedural question. So once the RFP is written, before it's sent out, does that actually go back through council to approve the actual RFP once it's written, or because the reason I ask that is because I know there's also a lot of discussion about what kind of the purpose is of the art center, visual art, performing arts, is it an auditorium? I mean, what kind of physical space is it? So I think that some of that stuff still needs to be worked out. But
Yes, sir.
okay,
Generally, something like that's an administrative item.
okay,
But given the ambiguity around some of these, around the issue, that the RFQ will come back to committee. Don't plan on taking it to council because I think that would cause to delay the situation, which I understand is not ideal. But when we have it ready and constructed, it makes sense to me to bring it to likely Health Resources HRE committee, and then blessing there, and then put it on the street after that.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Whit.
And I think what's been contemplated, or at least in my discussions with various council members, is we don't want to harm any existing business that's in the arts in the town of Mount Pleasant. So, for example, we subsidize sports, right? We subsidize like sports in recreational facilities, but we wouldn't want to harm, say, a performing arts, like not performing arts facility, but like a children's group that offers lessons, right? Like by offering discounted space to people to use for their lessons, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. What's missing in our community is a community space for the arts, for performing arts, but also for like visual arts. I mean, all those kinds of things I think are necessary, but I think whatever RFQ would be crafted, we would need to ensure that it does not undermine businesses in the town.
Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I don't mean to speak again. Did you? But I believe one of their recommendations was to leave out the visual arts, which that was another reason we wanted to bring to council if we still want to include that rather than taking literally all of their
The people that
recommendations.
voted are saying no.
Define visual arts.
There was a line that said, I thought it said take out visual arts, exclude. Okay. I'm just clarifying that because I know we would want that included. Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other discussion? All right, we heard the motion as it was amended, which is the motion to to follow the CAP plan with the ability to move, and also explicit direction for staff to be working on finding a location. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. All right, motion carries. Progress. Item 10, council new business is adopting a resolution encouraging Governor Henry McMaster to declare an economic disaster due to dumping of imported shrimp into the motion to approve. Second. We have a motion to approve. We have a second. If anybody has any questions, Mr. Jones and Mr. Magwood are here. I think we're all conversant on this, and it is also aimed at getting federal policy, because trade action is all federal, to let other countries know we will not be their dumping ground for their cheap farm-raised shrimp. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Item B, old business. There are no council old business items. Executive session, legal and contractual, to receive legal advice and possible action with regard to Deerline Green et al. Versus Mount Pleasant Waterworks, Town of Mount Pleasant, and Charleston County. Do we have a motion to go into executive session for the reason given? Before we vote, when we return, we may take action on any item, including any subsection of any section listed on an executive session agenda or discussed in an executive session during a properly noticed meeting. All in favor of the motion to go into executive session for the reason given, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We are in executive session. We're going in courtroom. Yes. 15 minutes. All right, we have reconvened from executive session. No votes were cast, no action was taken. Is there a motion to result from the proceedings, please?
Wait. It's not coming on.
How long have you been on council?
Not long enough, apparently. Yes, I would like to move that council approve the joint defense agreement as presented in executive session.
We have a motion, we have a second, any discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The joint defense agreement is adopted. That concludes item C. Moves us to item 11 on the agenda, which is to adjourn. We stand adjourned.
Yes.